I want to play this clip, and then we're going to have some reaction on the other side. 134, Governor Ron DeSantis on the bombshell dropping property taxes. 134.
From the property tax situation. It's very important, given how that's pinched so many homeowners, particularly our senior citizens who have their homes paid off and they bought it 30 years ago for a certain amount. Now they're being told it's worth so much more and they have to pony up more and more money. It's almost like they have to pay rent to the government just to be able to enjoy their property. And that's wrong. And we need to do something about it.
I actually really sympathize with this because I remember when I found out about property tax, I was like 18, 19. I was like, wait. You don't ever own your thing? You don't, like, you pay for it all these years and you don't even own it? It kind of is upsetting.
I get it. I understand. I've seen this pop up, and I can see how that's like very intuitively appealing. But at the same time, like, I had a tweet over the weekend where I objected to this, and I
commented on it.
Yeah, and it got a very strong reaction, like much stronger than I usually do. And most of it was pretty hostile, I'll admit it. But I think, I occasionally talk to Charlie about this because this was starting to bubble up while he was still with us. And what I think needs to be emphasized is abolishing property taxes, as he says. DeSantis said who the biggest beneficiary is intended to be. It's intended to be senior citizens who've already paid off their homes.
Right.
Let's look at the numbers. Elderly Americans are the wealthiest Americans by generation, and this has gotten more and more dramatic over time. This is not just a constant of life. This is something that has gotten, it's growing more intense every single year. We already have a lot of things that specifically benefit older Americans. They receive Social Security payments, of course. And yes, they paid into it, but those are funded by just taxing young people now. And a very large number of Social Security recipients get more money than they ever paid in.
There's your tweet up there, by the way. You
yes,
did 800,000 engagements.
It's not the specific numbers. It's the different reactions.
Great tweet.
On it.
Good conversation stimulator, man.
Yeah, and so you have that. So elderly people are they're pulling away. I mean, they get Medicare, of course. Their Social Security is now tax-free. Did we pass that, I believe? At least some portion of it is tax-free.
They had to, because it was done through reconciliation, they had to basically give them
They're also the biggest beneficiaries of the general rise in home prices. They were generally bought for cheaper amounts, and these keep appreciating. And property taxes, they do pay for things. They pay for, among other things, the legal system that guarantees your right to ownership. I think that's important.
Fire department.
Yeah, your fire department, your police department, schools. And they say, well, I don't have kids anymore. Well, you benefited from schools when you had kids in them and when you attended them yourself. Yep. We do not just say only parents pay into things. We collectively pay for a lot of things in society. You pay for cops even if you're not in a high crime neighborhood or not that exposed. We have a general obligation to care about the
general welfare.
And then you can say those taxes are inefficient and wasteful. I'm totally okay with that. But
okay, but we have a minute left. Explain that versus a land tax.
Well, land tax would be better, but this is the thing. We're not proposing replacing.
I understand, but what is it?
A land tax would be you tax the unimproved value of your land instead of taxing any property on it. You're just kind of taxing the land as it would be worth if there was nothing built on it. And this has become more popular lately. It's an idea from the 1800s, actually, to tax this, because the idea is it discourages speculation. It discourages sitting on land and doing nothing with it because you hope it'll go up in value. And instead, it encourages development. It encourages productivity. And that's the other thing. It's generally, when we've studied it, taxes on land property taxes are some of the least distortionary taxes. Think of income tax. Taxing income discourages people from working to make more income because you're taking it out. Taxing property discourages sitting on property without doing anything to make more money. And so we think of what different taxes encourage.
The persecution and martyrdom of Christians is real. And there will always be a cost because our spiritual enemy always opposes faithful witnesses everywhere, even here in our nation. That's why I want you to request a free copy of When Faith is Forbidden from The Voice of the Martyrs. You'll be inspired by bold believers around the world who stood firm for Christ despite risk of prison and even death. The same faith Charlie stood so boldly for. Go to vom.org/faith. That's vom.org/faith right now to get your free copy, or use the link in the show notes below. Maybe after a certain age, property tax rates get locked. So if you're over 65, your property can't continually appreciate till you say you live to 90 and you're on that fixed income for 25 years. At some point, it's going to outstrip your ability. I mean, I don't want to see a situation where if somebody, because you hold on, you're talking about, well, you paid into the system when you had kids and you benefited from it, so you need to keep paying into the system. Well, you also paid into the system all those years. There should be, I think, a reasonable compact made with people that when you get to a certain age and you're unable to work or you retire, that you have there's a kind of an agreement. We're not going to kick you out of your house. And that's my whole thing.
We're not kicking you out of your house, but any other situation, and old people, let's be frank, old people love to point this out with younger people if they live beyond their means and then they feel entitled to things. If you are living in a large house you can't afford the property taxes on, you are, to some extent, living beyond your means. And the way that we respond to that in plenty of other situations is you can downsize. And the reason they usually can't afford it is their house has gone up dramatically in value. So another thing you can do is borrow against that.
Maybe lock things in for people after a certain age, because here's the thing: you plan for retirement, making certain assumptions. Well, if your house, I mean, we've seen the charts, those crazy spikes before I think 2008, and then another crazy spike after 2011 in the housing. These are historic, unprecedented increases in the value of property, historic. So you would make certain assumptions working your 40, 50-year career based on what you think you need in order to survive. And then here, unbeknownst to you, your property value shoots up, you get reappraised, and your property taxes shoot through the roof, and all of a sudden it's the driving factor pushing you out of a house. I just think that is, if you're retirement, if you're over 65, you're retired, let's say you retire at 65 or 70, something like that, you stop earning extra income, but you're able to afford it, but then 5 years later, your house, so this happened in California where I was living. After COVID, a bunch of houses in neighborhoods with a lot of old people in it went from like an average cost of the house to be like $1 million, all of a sudden it was worth 2.5 in 4 years. And you're telling me that some elderly couple that is on fixed income now has to be driven out of their house because their property tax gets reassessed?
What if you're a renter and renting prices went up? So should we have rent control? Because you don't deserve to get driven out of the place you live?
I agree. There's good counter arguments, but like somebody who's done it right, that saved enough, that did the right things.
Well, they didn't save enough.
What's that?
They didn't save enough.
Well, they thought they did.
But they were mistaken. Like, I guess what I think is, I feel like
I get your point. I get your point.
It is special pleading for objectively the generation of Americans who have the most resources.
Well, but not everybody does, right? So this is the thing, right? Yeah, you can look at it in the macro, and there's a lot of wealth that is accumulated with elderly people in the macro. So maybe you make it means tested. I don't know.
Well, you can do that, but then again, you're not cutting, like, what we're seeing is we have, first of all, like I said, when we study this, property taxes are the least distortionary in terms of what behavior they do. Like income, like having a high income tax.
You mean what behavior they result in?
Like having a high income tax can actually reduce productivity of individual citizens. Having a high capital gains tax, that warps the behavior that people engage in. Relatively speaking, a property tax is less distortionary in what it causes people to do. And a land tax is even less distortionary, but no one's proposing changing to that. They're just proposing we get rid of property taxes. And like, it really strikes me as an unhelpful, like, it really is giving favoritism to, like, you should ask, who's going to benefit the most from this? And the people who are going to benefit the most from it are people who already have the most going for them. The wealthiest Americans. It is basically saying, let us continue to devour the young in order to favor the old.
So Texas does something like this with the homestead property once you reach age 65, but it doesn't shield you from property tax increases due to improvements, upgrades, additions, etc. So after 65, they sort of freeze the rate at which you're taxed for your property. Gives you a little bit of predictability. I mean, I'm just saying, when you get old, you don't want a country that just kicks you to the curb. There is a special dispensation
Well,
for
but if
for
you're
our
a young
elderly
person,
people.
you're getting kicked to the curb.
Listen, we spend most of our
Because like
our
none
show
of these
talking
none of
about
these
young
ideas are even to say like we're going to just cut government spending generally and finance it by getting rid of property taxes. They're still going to want all the services. They're still going to want, frankly, heavily subsidized healthcare, heavily subsidized, so no one's proposing getting rid of Social Security. No one's proposing getting rid of Medicare.
Mm-hmm.
So it's basically just a handout for a given group of people. And we already actually know how this is going to go because, like, for example, California had a giant property tax revolt where they freeze property taxes to be lower
13.
for older people.
Yeah.
And what's the end result of that?
It's been mass
The end
chaos.
result is
A lot of-
California has the least affordable homes in the country.
But that's causation and correlation. We're not sure which is which because California has a lot of issues that are driving
California
up.
has tons of issues,
Right.
but
But
the
actually,
fact
Prop
that they
13 for normal working families, I'm telling you, it's my wife's family has benefited tremendously. It's why they're still able to be in their home, right? And they listen. You could say that that's a handout for them, but they weren't living beyond their means. I will tell you. And so I just think, listen, if a land tax is even in the conversation, I think Florida should consider it, or you do it means tested and age frozen. They're still paying. They're still paying into the system.
Well, no, they're not if they're not paying property taxes.
No, I'm saying
a lot of them.
I'm
Of
saying-
this is because it's people who are retired. They have no income taxes. They have lower capital gains taxes. They're receiving, tax advantaged Social Security, and this is like the last thing that they have to pay into.
Well, what would you want them to keep working a job? Or
No,
what
I think what we should say is if you are in a piece of property that is radically increased in value,
free it up for the market, give it to somebody else.
Or you should recognize market pressures that exist for everyone else. We don't think young people should be entitled to live in the most expensive parts of a city.
It's true.
We don't think young parents
This
should
is
be
the most
entitled.
compelling part of your
who that
argument.
should be the most entitled to live anywhere. We don't think young people should be entitled to go to the most expensive college for free. Like we recognize this with a bunch of other things. So I don't think we should view it as an entitlement to live forever in a house that has radically gone up in value. If it is something you desire, you can work for it. You can save extra money against it. You can maybe
again,
get
I
support from your children. But if you are just unable to do it, for among other things, we're talking about something where you have benefited from something tremendously useful. Your home has gone up dramatically in value.
Yeah.
You can take out a reverse mortgage on that. You can borrow against
true.
the value of your home
That's true.
to do that, or you can downsize. And like historically, that is what elderly people have done. You have downsized as you have fewer needs. Because think about it. If you don't have kids in your home anymore, if you don't, if you're not as mobile, you probably can't even use as much of your property anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is historically a thing that has happened. And it's not just been poorer people. I like to cite this example a lot because Charlie liked Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill had a big house. I think Checkers was the name of it. But whatever it was, he had a big house. And when
Gave it
he
to
was
his son, right?
Yeah, he gave it to his son, and he personally himself built a smaller cabin that he and his wife lived in. And then he gave it to his son to live in the main house, and he and his wife lived in the smaller home, which they didn't need anymore because they didn't need a big home anymore because their own children had grown up. And I'm not saying this, I don't want to be like this vicious person. I'm not saying giddily, oh, make these people leave their homes. I am saying this in response to a push to get rid of all property taxes, which has suddenly become this big meme on the right, is to get rid of all property taxes. And I would say this is sort of the conservative mirror image of Mamdaniism that wants to, ban rent hikes. We're waging war on like a normal thing that basically has always existed. We've always had property taxes in America. Literally, I think the first one was in 1634. In fact, it used to be far more broad. We used to have general property taxes in the United States, a tax on all property you owned, all your land, all your farmland, all your home, everything in it, your livestock. We used to have general property taxes. Just having a tax on, a residential or commercial property is a more restrained version of that, which we adopted because it got way harder. You can't, how do you tax the value of every single thing in a modern person's home? It would be implausible. And so this is what we've adapted to, but it's something that's always existed. The same founding fathers who fought for life, liberty, and property were okay with property taxes existing.